7 years for killing a man in Cedar Rapids. He was not found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, a greater charge. Court documents show a judge sentenced the man near Cedar Terrace Apartments last year on the southwest side. Jackson says he thought someone was breaking into his vehicle and went to investigate. He says he saw Dustin Frondel had some sort of confrontation with Dustin Frondel. AARP Iowa announced 8 organizations throughout the state will receive 2023 Community Challenge grants. These grants are designed to help improve public places, transportation, housing, and more. They also have an emphasis on the needs of adults aged 50 and older. Here in Eastern Iowa, the Ely Public Library used the funding to buy 4 virtual reality devices. The Johnson County Livable Community Housing Action Team is also getting funding to educate the public on different housing units. For breaking news alerts and headlines anytime, download the KCRG TV9 News app.
Tune in to the Overcomer Ministry from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. every night on News Talk 1540 KXEL. Revelation chapter 10 verse 7 says, "But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets." Listen to the preaching of God's word from the Overcomer Ministry, located in Walterboro, South Carolina, broadcasting each night from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. on News Talk 1540 KXEL.
The KCRG TV9 First Alert forecast for today, a chance for a few storms, especially to our south. Expect a high of 89, a slight chance for storms tonight, the low of 66. Winds out of the northeast between 5 to 15 miles per hour today, becoming northerly tonight between 5 to 10. Expecting better air quality tomorrow, but still a chance for a storm or two, high of 88. I'm TV9 First Alert Storm Team meteorologist Corey Thompson on News Talk 1540 KXEL.
It is a rather complicated map. If you look at TV9 First Alert Pinpoint Doppler radar, some significant rain and severe weather stretching from just north of Atlantic through Creston down to the Missouri border. Also some significant cells northeast of Sheraton, also down to Ottumwa and Bloomfield. And as a result, severe thunderstorm warnings for several counties southwest of Des Moines and also another spot southeast of Ottumwa. Meanwhile, eastern half of the state has an air quality alert. Meanwhile, a significant area of south central and southeast Iowa has a severe thunderstorm watch. Now, the only thing that affects the corridor or the Cedar Valley is the air quality alert, but if you're going anywhere along and south of I-80, you're going to run into some bumpy weather right now and perhaps again later. Corey Thompson from the TV9 First Alert Weather Lab has more at the bottom of the hour. Decorah this hour has fog and mist, 72 degrees, fog and mist, and 72 as well in Boone. It's overcast and hazy with 73 in Des Moines. Hazy skies and 75 in Independence. Fair skies, but hazy conditions, 78 in Iowa City. Again, hazy in Vinton and 78 degrees. Fog and mist, 73 in both Charles City and Ames. Fog and mist, 72 in both Webster City and Clarion. Fair skies but hazy in both Mason City and Marshalltown, 74 in each location. Hazy but fair in Olwine with 73. Fog and mist in Newton with 73. Eastern Iowa Airport, north wind at 5, visibility down to only 1.25 miles. That's because of smoke. 77 is the temperature. In Cedar Rapids, Waterloo Regional Airport, north wind at 7, visibility only 1.5 miles at the airport on the north end of town due to haze. Otherwise, just a few clouds in the Cedar Valley sky. 76 in Waterloo Cedar Falls from News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk. KXEL News Time, 9:10.
With programming from the Blackhawk Roof Company studio, online at blackhawkroof.com. This is News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.
Turn up your radio. Here's the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
And I'll tell you, Republicans now, they've got some tough choices to make here. And we need to get to the bottom. What did Joe know? When did he know it? And how much money did Joe Biden maybe make off these business deals? Because if he did, it's going to be it's going to be called what it is, bribery. It's, it's not just pay to play. It's not just influence peddling, what the 1023 form is saying. It's not what the IRS agents are saying. and a cover up the likes of which this country's never seen before. This is the most corrupt president we've ever had. And I don't think they're going to escape it right now. That's my feeling today based on everything that's now coming out.
Check out the Sean Hannity radio show later today, right here.
Remember 2019, a gallon of gas was $2.60, a dozen eggs cost $1.40, and a pound of beef was $3. But now, gas is $3.66, eggs cost $3 to $4, and beef is almost $5. But that's not because food is getting more expensive. Thanks to inflation, your dollars have lost 99% of their value in the last 90 years. So if you're counting on your money to last, don't trust the dollars in your account. Trust the only thing that's held its value over time: gold and silver. Now, write this down, because when you protect your money with physical gold and silver, you could also get up to $10,000 in free silver from Sean Hannity's partner, Goldco, when you call 855-815-GOLD. So don't miss what could be your best opportunity to protect your retirement savings today. Call 855-815-GOLD. That's 855-815-GOLD.
Making you wait to hear Hannity? We know better. Listen live weekday afternoons at 2 on News Talk 1540 KXEL. This is where Iowa comes to talk. News Talk 1540 KXEL. And this is KXEL Live and Local. From the KXEL News Center, here is Jeff Stein.
And good morning to you once again. It is hour number 2 of the program, on the air live for this Thursday, 13 minutes past 9. Before we get into the content for this hour, we do have this breaking news that the U.S. Supreme Court has struck down affirmative action policies at colleges and universities that use race as a factor in deciding who is admitted. Once again, ruling handed down just a few moments ago, the U.S. Supreme Court has outlawed consideration of race as a factor in college admissions. That is one of a number of decisions that we're expecting to be handed down by the court yet this week before the term ends. All right, bottom of the hour is a Bloomberg Money Minute, followed by our daily recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. TV9 meteorologist Corey Thompson will be along to talk about the potential for severe weather, and we are having some in south central and southwest Iowa. Also this hour, Bailey McRae, the newly named GM of the newly named Waterloo Arena football team. It's the Waterloo Woo, and you'll hear about it in 30 minutes. Joining us now, though, live on the Newsline, glad to say return guest to the program, he is Mark Burrell. Mr. Burrell is the author of a fine book called Rediscovering the American Covenant, Roadmap to Restore America. Mr. Burrell, good morning. Welcome back. Thanks for taking time.
Hey, Jeff. It's great to be with you again.
I wanted to talk with you in particular since Independence Day is Tuesday, and as this audience knows, it's not the 4th of July, it's Independence Day, because if we just start calling it the 4th of July, we forget the meaning of it, and that's really the whole point of your book, right? We have gotten away from the foundation upon which this country was based.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's the whole focus of the book. The title is Rediscovering the American Covenant. And the basic point I make in the book is that the root cause problem of the division that we have in America today is not that we're not following the Constitution or that we've got bad policy. Those are big problems, Jeff. But that's not the root cause problem. The root cause problem is that we have a number of our fellow citizens who either don't know or have fundamentally rejected our national founding covenant, which is that Declaration of Independence, which was actually a contract made by our founding fathers with God to say we're separating from this immoral tyranny that we've tried to reconcile with for a long time. They acknowledged God in terms of the moral law and the rights that are inalienable that we all have. They appealed to God for help. They committed to it by pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And then they signed a document, which meant treason if they were caught. And then they declared it. And those are the 4 steps, Jeff, that they took back in July of 1776. And that's what we need to be thinking about this July 4th.
One of the things that struck me when you pointed out, and they signed it, so much of what passes for political discourse today is a 280 character tweet with someone who refuses to put their name with it and comes up with some odd username. That is 180 degrees away from taking responsibility for your opinion, as those very brave individuals did.
Yes, and that's critical. Recall in the last paragraph, they even call out the fact, they say, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intention. Rectitude means truthfulness. In other words, they knew they were taking a bold step, and they were earnestly trying to declare what they viewed to be the truth. And then they signed it, which is, how much more can you do to proclaim what it is you believe? And of course, they did this appealing to God for help. And we often forget how improbable it was that they would be successful in separating. And I maintain in the book that the reason that God blessed the effort, which he clearly did, was because they followed the biblical template for how to start a nation or how to start a community, available to any nation to follow. And it just so happens our founders followed that to the letter. And because of that, we're blessed with freedom if we can keep it, right?
A republic, if you can keep it. Absolutely right, as Franklin said. Mark Burrell is our guest. He is the author of Rediscovering the American Covenant, Roadmap to Restore America. He joins us live on News Talk 1540 KXEL. I have said for years that if you really want to have an Independence Day commemoration, you need to have someone stand in the town square and read the Declaration of Independence. Just read it as it was done in 1776 when folks finally got a copy of it. And we're going to do that on the radio on Tuesday, a couple of different times, so folks will have the opportunity to hear it. But annually, I do commentaries on why really Independence Day is July 2nd, and also the punishment that the signers had inflicted upon them. That's something that I think has been glossed over in history, and that's why I'm so glad you mentioned the point about them signing off. That was the list, right? That was the king's enemies list, and those people who signed that document, it took a toll on them and their families and their treasure.
Yeah, we forget that most of the people that signed that lost everything during the war, some of them their lives. The only people that didn't lose everything ended up being president later on. They really did put everything on the line. And I love the idea that you're going to read it on the air. I think every family should get together and read it. We started doing this, and I'll tell you what, it's moving. What we did is each of us would read like a paragraph or so, and we just went around the table. And, it's hard to do that without tearing up, because you realize what they did.
How did we get so far away from this? And I think I asked you this when you were with us a couple of months ago. How is it that we got so far away from these documents that may be imperfect, but boy, they've served us pretty well, and everybody else in the world seems to want to follow it, all free-thinking people?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the what, and then I'll tell you the why.
Yes.
What happened was we had a series of judicial rulings starting, the big one was in 1947, which is where this doctrine of separation of church and state was invented. It's nowhere in our founding documents. The Supreme Court passed it, and that became the precedent to then slowly remove Christianity, God, the moral law from the public square. In the early 60s, reading the Bible and praying in school was banned. And it's just a matter of time then until you had generations that came along that had no idea what the Ten Commandments are, what they mean, why they're beneficial to us. And so you get to today, which is, we have forgotten who we are as Americans. So that's the what happened. And I detail that in the book, by the way. I summarize it, chapter 1. Mm-hmm. The why is because the church is disengaged. And this is one of the reasons, it's the primary reason that I wrote the book, because so many church leaders, the evangelical establishment, if you will, they're convinced that Christians should not be involved in politics, instead should be involved in evangelism. I have a whole chapter on that, chapter 4, where I talk about the fact that dispensing justice was actually God's evangelistic strategy in the Old Testament. And I showed the Queen of Sheba account. I explained it from Deuteronomy 4. So the bottom line is a lot of the spiritual leaders that we have today are not aware of the theology around this topic. And so I really do a deep dive and try and provide the strongest argument, the strongest theological argument to justify active Christian citizenship.
Is it fair to say that without that foundation, they would not have had the fortitude to make the stands that they did? And in fact, that may be why, and I made a flippant comment yesterday, that we don't have statesmen and stateswomen anymore. We have people who are angling to get elected and reelected and have their parties prevail. But is that really why the American experiment actually took off, because of that foundation?
Exactly. I absolutely believe that that's what the difference was. Recall that about 30 to 40 years before the founding, you had the Great Awakening. And that was important because there was a wave of evangelism that was sweeping through the colonies at that point in time. And who was growing up, in the 1730s, 40s, and 50s, which is when the Great Awakening was occurring? It was the founding generation. So they were steeped in the theology surrounding how to govern ourselves. And when it came time to separate, they didn't hesitate. And so that is exactly the difference. We have forgotten the theology behind the American founding, which I assert means you don't fully appreciate the American founding. You don't understand the why. You may understand what happened and be able to articulate events. But to your point, the people today that are vying to run for office, they're more like commentators, just, reciting the latest talking points, rather than standing up and saying, here's who we are as Americans. And I contend that that's the conversation we've got to start to have. We've got to re-educate and make the point in the book, the last chapter, that we've got to recommit. And then the third thing is, I think we've got to reframe the argument, which is about who we are as Americans, not just policy discussions. And I think that's the roadmap to turn America back to God.
Rediscovering the American Covenant, Roadmap to Restore America is the name of the book. Mark Burrell is the author. He joins us live on News Talk 1540 KXEL. If you go to defendamericanliberty.com, you'll learn much more about it. And there's also a way you can order the book right there directly. And I would encourage you to do that. Defendamericanliberty.com. Mr. Burrell, kind enough to join us on News Talk 1540 KXEL. So as we near this Independence Day, and because of the fact that it's a Tuesday on the calendar, there are a lot of folks who are going to be, they're hard to find already, frankly, but they may be taking the whole week off. They've got a 4-day weekend, et cetera, et cetera. What's the best way for someone to re-engage, if you will? That's a perfect opportunity to mark the occasion. What are some very basic things that people who are nodding their heads as we're talking, what can they do?
Yeah, so they say all politics is local. So let's get real local. And that's the family. So I would suggest that the first thing you do, and this is, of course, the Christian walk. First, get your own life in order. When you become a Christian, especially if you were living a little bit wildly, first try and get yourself under control, then get your family under control, and then work to help get your community under control. So I suggest that as a family, you pull out that Declaration of Independence and either mom or dad read it if your kids are young. And that's the whole reason I wrote the book, is to help understand it better. And I would encourage you to get a copy and start educating your kids on these wonderful concepts. It'll actually build your faith and give you the conviction, as you mentioned, Jeff, in order to speak out in a loving way, with conviction. But that's what we've got to do. We've got to re-educate ourselves. And that starts with the family. So that's where I encourage people to start.
And forgive my ignorance on this. I cannot recall exactly when the book was released, but I know you can tell me that, because every author, I among them, can tell you exactly when they saw their first copy and when it was released. But tell me what the reaction has been.
So it came out in October.
Okay.
And the reaction for those that have read it has been extremely positive. And I believe that's because I don't think you'll find a more biblically oriented approach to this topic. And Jeff, that's the only reason I wrote the book. I didn't wake up one day and said, I want to be an author. What should I write about? I'm an engineer. I've had a teaching ministry for over 30 years. And I started teaching this about 15 years ago. First, over the last 25 years, I've been studying it. And I realized there's lots of great Christian Christian history books out there, but they don't explain the theology behind what happened. They don't make that really strong biblical argument to that evangelical pastor who is convinced that they can't talk about politics in their church. And so I realized that maybe God's calling me to write a book. So it took 10 years, and I really tried to make it to equip pastors and church leaders so that they can answer these questions first for themselves and then with their congregation.
The book is entitled Rediscovering the American Covenant, Roadmap to Restore America. DefendAmericanLiberty.com is a good place where you can learn more and pick up a copy of the book, Rediscovering the American Covenant. The author, Mark Burrell. Mr. Burrell, thank you again for the message. Thank you again for the time and continued success with the effort.
Thanks, Jeff.
And happy Independence Day to you and
you
yours
as well.
Thanks now. Mark Burrell, and he joined us live on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk and where KXEL News Time now is 9:28. Here's a reminder, the Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver increased soybean demand through market development and new uses, farmer-focused research, and timely information and know-how. You can make the most of your investment in the soybean checkoff by activating your farmer membership at iasoybeans.com. If you're already a member, go to that same great website, iasoybeans.com, and validate your membership. And this is a perfect time to activate the new membership or validate an existing one, because if you do it between now and the end of August, you'll be eligible to win one of 75 different prizes, everything from swag packs to Carhartt t-shirts to the grand prize of a drone. Promo code DRONE2, that's the word drone and the number 2, of course. So do this before the end of August and really come out very strong. It's iasoybeans.com, on the Twitter machine at Iowa Soybeans. This message powered by the Soybean Checkoff. And again, don't forget, the Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver. KXEL Live and Local, our great video experiment continues, and this program is being streamed live on YouTube today. I don't think we've said anything that is going to get us kicked off of that, at least not yet. Well, there's still time. We've got an hour and a half to go. Go to KXEL's channel on YouTube. If you just go to youtube.com and search for KXEL, you'll see the KXEL 1540 YouTube channel. And so if you have a burning desire to watch a radio program, you can do that. We did this on Facebook 2 days ago. It was Twitter yesterday. It's YouTube today. And we're just experimenting this week with some technology, and we'll see if that is something you like or if it adds to the experience. All right. KXEL News Time now on this Thursday morning is 9:30. We'll give you the opening markets in about 60 seconds, but let's repeat the breaking news that occurred just earlier this hour. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the court, said, eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it. And so the U.S. Supreme Court has declared race-based affirmative action in college admissions is illegal racial discrimination. And that was handed down this morning. In another case handed down just a few moments ago, this is one of these days where there are multiple decisions handed down. The Supreme Court has given a win to a postal worker who refused to work on Sunday because of his faith. That was the case where originally he was told it's fine, you don't have to work on Sunday. Then they wanted to insist that he work on Sunday. The U.S. Supreme Court has sided with the postal worker who refused to work on Sunday. Again, more rulings will be handed down as the day moves along, and you'll hear about them here. And Glenn Beck will comment as well between 11 and 2. The Beck program is time shifted, and so you'll hear them announce that it was just handed down, and it would have been like at this time You'll hear it in the noon hour, but the analysis is still sound, even though it is a few hours beyond when it was spoken. All right, we've got those opening markets for you, but we also have severe weather. And there's now a severe thunderstorm warning for the Des Moines metro area, especially to areas of south and west. So this does include Waukee and Winterset, but it does also include the heart of downtown Des Moines. That's a severe thunderstorm warning, pea-sized hail, and it is valid for another 45 minutes as there is a bit of severe weather south of Interstate 80. We'll get an update on the weather coming up in just a few moments. 28 now before 10 from News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.
The Biden liberals have chosen grievance over greatness, and their socialist agenda has created a culture of victimhood in America. Senator Tim Scott is the conservative they fear the most because the truth of his life disproves their lies. Tim Scott rose from a child of poverty to a candidate for president because he chose patriotism over pity and to be a victor, not a victim. Here's Senator Tim Scott.
I'm about to say something really controversial in Joe Biden's America. If you're able-bodied, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. And if you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if you're a man, you should play sports against men. America needs more victors and less victims.
Senator Tim Scott will fight for the simple truths that make America exceptional.
These aren't just conservative values. They're American values. And as president, I will defend them. I'm Tim Scott, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Tim Scott for America.
These are the opening markets on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa State Fair. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, corn traded relatively unchanged on the overnight session. After 2 days of sharp sell-offs, July was slightly higher, but then settled back down just a little bit at the close. Yesterday, a front moved through Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois, but 24-hour precipitation total showed that most areas received no more than a quarter of an inch. There's significant rain, though, in the 5-day forecast, with large amounts expected to be in parts of Illinois that are the driest. U.S. ethanol stocks rose by 0.8% to 22.979 million barrels, with analysts having expected 22.755. Soybeans were trading mixed here right before the close of the overnight session. Weather is the biggest factor. Even though we got rain yesterday, we still need very much important rainfalls. Brazilian soy exports have reached 14.2 million metric tons in June, compared to the 14.3 million metric tons forecasted. Brazil's crop is now expected to reach a record-breaking 156 million metric tons of soybeans harvested, far above the initial analyst guesses. On livestock, cattle finished higher yesterday as pressure in the grain market gave feeder cattle more room yesterday, and the board settled triple digits higher. Live cattle futures are also firmer. The August contract led the rally, but still at a $5.75 discount to June, which expires on Friday. Wholesale box beef prices were another $1.33 lower in choice and $1.75 weaker in select. That left the choice select spread at $31.22. Federally inspected cattle slaughter was estimated at 377,000 head so far for the week. Well, the summer hog contracts added some more premium in the fall months on Wednesday as July and August closed in the black. July was up 15 cents and August by up just a nickel, otherwise in a mostly red session. USDA will release their quarterly hogs and pigs report this afternoon, and traders are expecting to see some fractional declines. Pork cutout futures were also stronger yesterday. We'll look at the numbers coming up next.
Best days ever at the Iowa State Fair. Best days ever at the Iowa State Fair. Best days ever.
Best days ever start August 10th through August 20th at the Iowa State Fair. And now through August 9th is your chance to save $5 with an advanced adult admission ticket. Start planning your best days ever today at iowastatefair.org. Best days ever August 10th through 20th at the Iowa State Fair.
Best days ever at the Iowa State Fair.
July corn up 5 3/4 at $5.95 December new crop up a quarter at $5.37. July beans up 6 3/4 at $14.57 3/4. November up 3 3/4 at $12.68 3/4. August live cattle down 40 cents at $173.47. August feeders down 50 cents at $239.75. Lean hogs down 15 cents at $94.12. Pork cutouts up 12 cents at $99.62. That's the opening markets on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Well, if it seems like everyone looking for a summer job has found one already, you're not alone. The number of people filing unemployment claims plunged in the latest week. Of course, we also had the Juneteenth holiday. That could have caused delays in people putting in for unemployment. Also, and maybe I should have mentioned this first, U.S. economic growth is turning out to be stronger than we thought. That's according to government data. Thanks to solid exports and all the spending you and I and other consumers have been doing lately. JP Morgan Chase is the new king of the hill. It's beating Goldman Sachs as a top deal maker, with JP Morgan Chase taking credit for $284 billion in deals compared to $237 billion for Goldman. Tough time overall for the industry. Deal volume is just almost half what it was in 2022. And pack your patience if you're flying anywhere this holiday weekend. Those massive delays we had in East Coast air travel yesterday, well, they could be worse today, with tonight being the worst of the worst. Some passengers saying they've already spent 2 nights sleeping in airports. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Tactical Creations in Vinton is a proud sponsor of the presentation of the Pledge of Allegiance on News Talk 1540 KXEL. And we invite you to visit us at our store in downtown Vinton or online at tacticalcreations.com.
This is Waterloo Mayor Quentin Hart, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This presentation of the Pledge of Allegiance on News Talk 1540 KXEL was proudly presented by Tactical Creations, just a short drive away in beautiful downtown Vinton, or visit us at tacticalcreations.com.
You might know the singer Mel Torme as the Velvet Fog. That's not the kind of fog and haze we've been seeing in eastern Iowa, though, and we're going to find out when we might get rid of this hazy, messy atmosphere that we've been seeing as we connect now with TV9 meteorologist Corey Thompson. Good morning, Corey.
Hello, Tim. I was not prepared for the Mel Torme reference this morning, but I'm happy to hear it nonetheless.
Well, we're happy to have you along with us, and happy that we're getting some good news when it comes to haze, smoke, fog, and all of the other atmosphere that just has been murky.
Yeah, it certainly has. And we, frankly, are seeing some of the denser visibility reductions this morning that we have over the past couple of days. As low as a mile in some spots, even had a half-mile report in Washington down in southern Iowa earlier today. And that will be kind of what we're facing over the next few hours. But the good news is that the trends based on some computer modeling that we've been relying on the past couple of days, which has done pretty good at predicting how it's evolved most of the time, is that we should be headed toward some reduction later today. It's going to take still several more hours. So that's why the air quality alert stays in effect today, and still advising that folks take that in consideration and limit their outdoor strenuous activities or even just outdoor time until things get better. But by this time tomorrow, we could be talking about significantly lower smoke and concentrations in the air.
Well, we've also had some rain that's been heading our way, at least for some folks in eastern Iowa. It's been in Nebraska and the southwest corner of the state. And where and when are we likely to see that anywhere on, say, this side of Interstate 35?
It's going to take a few more hours for that, too. It's been tracking to the east at about 30 to 45 miles per hour, maybe showing a little bit of a sign of picking up at pace just a bit. And these clusters of storms have been tracking along and south of Interstate 80 at this point, with the strongest storms on the southern edge of that would stay in northern Missouri. But just recently, a new severe thunderstorm warning went up for the Omaha Council Bluffs area. And so I'm going to watch that line segment that's kind of on the northern side of this whole mass of showers and storms. And that could track along and south of Interstate 80 into eastern Iowa. After about 10 or 11 o'clock this morning is where it would start to enter that area east of Interstate 35, and then probably exiting the state to the east by 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon, depending on whether it picks up speed or not. Again, damaging winds would be a possibility with some of this activity. That seems to be the main threat today, as well as the outside shot at some large hail. The good news is I think that, again, the strongest storms will stay out of the state and head towards central Illinois, probably, where they've already seen a couple of big storms out there this morning, too, that produced some pretty large hail near Champaign-Urbana.
All right, Corey. Well, we will check in again tomorrow at this same time and find out about the weekend forecast at that point.
Sounds good. Enjoy the rest of your day.
That's TV9 meteorologist Corey Thompson in conversation earlier this morning with KXEL's Tim Harwood. And the weather is a little bumpy, especially in southern Iowa. It looks like about a dozen counties have a severe thunderstorm warning now along the Iowa-Missouri border, and it stretches from east of Ottumwa all the way back to Lamoni, then up to the Des Moines Metro. So it is sort of an L-shaped wedge, if you will. Severe thunderstorm watch for most areas along and south of I-80, but that tapers off in the Marengo, Iowa City, West Branch area. So it is the Des Moines metro area and points east and west along I-80 through Poweshiek County, then everything else in the south central and southeast portion of the state. Severe thunderstorm watch, and as I said, severe thunderstorm warnings from places like Des Moines to Lamoni to Ottumwa. Eastern half of the state, east of I-35, air quality alert. So that is the only thing that is currently at issue for the Cedar Valley or the corridor, another air quality alert, and that is in effect until it looks like midnight tonight. So that'd be 11:59 p.m., technically midnight tomorrow, Friday. So it gives us quite a mixed bag. Fog and mist in Decorah this morning. Mixed bag, including mist. Good thing I talk for a living. 72 in Decorah in Winneshiek County. Fog and mist 72 as well in Boone. It is overcast and hazy at the airport in Des Moines, 73 in the capital city. Independence, hazy conditions, 76. Hazy and 78 now in Vinton. Fair skies, but a bit of haze and 78 in Iowa City. Fog and mist in both Charles City and Clarion, 73 in each location. Fog and mist 72 in Webster City. Fair skies, but some haze in both Mason City and Marshalltown, 74 in each of those locales. Fog and mist 73 in Ames and Newton. Fair skies, but hazy conditions, and 73 in Oldwine. Eastern Iowa Airport, north wind at 5. Visibility 1.25 miles at the airport on the south end of town. That's due to smoke, and 77 in Cedar Rapids. Waterloo Regional Airport, north wind at 7. Visibility only 1.5 miles on the north end of the city. Just a few clouds in the Cedar Valley sky, and we're up to 76 degrees with haze in Waterloo, Cedar Falls. From News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk, and where KXEL News Time on this Thursday morning is 16 and a half minutes before 10 o'clock.
Hi, this is Jordan McAnulty with Jensen Ford Lincoln in Marshalltown. We've been growing our family for over 55 years and invite you to join us. Because when you work with us at locally owned Jensen Ford Lincoln, you're treated like family. For competitive pricing with the best deal right away, visit Jensen at 2805 South Center Street in Marshalltown. Jensen Ford Lincoln, here for you now and every mile along the way.
Jensen Ford Lincoln, Center Street, Marshalltown, or visit them online at jenfordlincoln.com.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
This week on KXEL Classic Radio, some of the best moments from the legendary Jack Benny Fred Allen feud. And Iowa's own Johnny Carson remembers a half century of comedy on NBC Radio. I'm Jeff Stein. Join me for the greatest radio shows of all time on KXEL Classic Radio this Sunday night from 6 until 9 on News Talk 1540 KXEL.
News Talk 1540 KXEL is your station where Iowa comes to talk, and good morning. Waterloo's forthcoming indoor football team now has a name. If you haven't heard, I could tell you, but instead, let's find out from our next guest. Bailey McCrae is helping the organization get set up in preparation to take the field in the summer of 2024. And we welcome Bailey to the microphone now. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
So what is the name for those that have not already heard?
It is the Waterloo Woo.
And explain that for us. What is that based on?
So a lot of people had submitted names in regards to Waterloo being a railroad town, and there was quite a few that mentioned the history of wrestling here. So Dan Gable being obviously a huge part of that. However, we wanted to have a good cadence, and Waterloo Woo, Ric Flair. So kind of a play on both.
I see. Okay, I had not followed the wrestling part of the story until you described it that way. What sort of immediate feedback have you heard from the folks that were on hand on Wednesday when the name was announced?
It's actually been kind of a mixed bag. Some people are very excited about it. You get to be loud, you get to yell woo. How cool is that? Some people are a little bit confused, but I think that's something that can easily be turned into a positive.
In addition to the new team name that was announced on Wednesday, also revealed the team colors, the team logo. Tell us a little about what folks might start to see on shirts or in other places when they find out about football indoors in Waterloo and the new Waterloo Woo.
It is a dashing animal. It looks like a wolf. A couple of our logos have him kind of howling at the moon. Other ones have him in the Heisman stance, essentially. It's very cool. The colors are fun. I think it'll be very good for Waterloo.
Is this more of a tough logo or is this more of a cartoon,
Oh,
kid-friendly
cartoon.
logo?
I mean, it's cartoon, but it is very, I think it's gonna go well all the way around once people see every single option that there is that Brian had come up with for these.
We're talking with Bailey McCrae, who is managing Waterloo's entry into the Arena Football League, the new Waterloo Woo, as announced yesterday, the naming coming out. And we're talking with Bailey about some of the other details for the team as preparations continue to come together for this new team to play at the Cattle Congress grounds. Waterloo Auditorium will host football next summer. And for those that were not with us back earlier this spring when the announcement was
May
made,
4th.
yeah, what other details should people know if they're just hearing about this new football team for the first time?
It's a very cool concept that has been designed here. So it's 6-on-6, very fast paced. No offensive huddles unless you have a timeout, 20-second play clocks. The things you cheer about at a normal, NFL or college football game, the touchdowns, huge tackles, those are going to happen all of the time. You play NFL, you're looking 28 points, you're hoping that secures your win. Here you're looking at 80-point games, all hard hits. There is no shoestring tackles. You're getting hit against a wall. You're not getting tripped up or running out of bounds. One ref on the field, the rest are sky refs. The fans actually get to judge whoever their ref is. And so we don't like him, he doesn't come back, essentially. So it's very great. It's going to be very interactive, very kid friendly. Half times are going to be huge. We're just very excited.
The other teams in this new league that were announced at the same time or before Waterloo's announcement were in Duluth and Springfield, and there was a fourth team that was going to be announced. What's the status of that new club?
The fourth team has been announced. I think about a week and a half ago, and it is in Kansas City, Kansas. So they have a huge football history as well. It's going to be great, I think.
When it comes to putting together some of the pieces, what are you doing right now? Again, this is a year away, but it's going to go by very quickly because there's a lot to do when starting any sort of new business, and particularly when it comes to a business that needs to attract literally thousands of people to just a handful of dates.
Yeah, it's gonna come so quickly. So trying to keep momentum here. We're going to be developing kind of a plan for monthly events, hopefully, just different things. At one point, we're going to have hopefully the unveiling of the uniform itself at a school, and just looking into different things that we can get together to keep the community excited and involved and continue blessing us and us blessing them with different, partnership opportunities. Obviously, we're going to be looking for additional staff, the coaches, start recruiting players. So there's going to be different things. It's just getting them to all fall in line here now.
We're talking with Bailey McCray. She is the boots on the ground, as it were, for the Arena League, the new football league that is coming to Waterloo, and the Waterloo Woo, the name announced on Wednesday for the football team that will take the field at the National Cattle Congress grounds starting in the summer of 2024. Let's talk about what former McElroy Auditorium, now Waterloo Auditorium, might look like and how it might be different. People have seen hockey games there. They've seen concerts there. They may have seen ag events there or other activities. What will be new and unlike anything that they've seen before when they come in and there's a football field on the arena surface?
So I think that's honestly one of the things I'm very excited about. We want to keep the integrity and the authenticity of that building. It is old. It is the only building in Iowa that has ever been used for a professional sports team. NBA back in, I believe it was the 50s. So we want to keep the integrity. So it'll obviously be spruced up. We're going to do painting and obviously keep it really clean after the rodeo comes this season. But obviously you're going to have the new turf. We're going to have additional seating. We're going to be building my offices in that building itself. We will have 2 9x16 scoreboards added over either end zone for fans to be able to see, if you're not at that perfect angle and you want to see a replay or like our TV timeouts, those will be played on the board as well.
Are you going to have to figure out how to take up the field and put it back down on a regular basis as different events come in and out of McElroy or, again, Waterloo Auditorium? I still haven't adjusted to the new name. Or is that something where the field's going to be able to stay in place for the duration of the season?
We are so blessed to be working with Jim and Heather at Cattle Congress because they are allowing us to keep the field down. From the time it goes down, it'll stay through the end of the season, and we'll just be storing it between, assuming it's still in good shape. So very lucky that way.
Well, let me wrap up, Bailey, by just sort of asking about what I'm sure is enthusiasm and good enthusiasm, but maybe premature enthusiasm. I'm guessing you're getting questions about things that you just can't answer yet, like tickets, other things like that. What do people want to know? And any sort of timeline that you can give, even if those answers aren't really available yet.
Yeah, so actually we have started selling preseason tickets. They're available at our new website, waterloowoo.com.
Pretty straightforward website. But are there some other things that people want to know that just haven't quite been nailed down yet?
Yeah.
That are frequently asked questions.
So any business owners that are interested in potentially partnering or doing something bigger for events can get a hold of me at any time, either by email, through the website, or my phone number. We're going to be working, like I said, I'm working on a lot of different programs that will kind of get the word out more. Not everybody listens to the radio, not everybody watches the news. So if you don't know, within the next few months, I'm hoping you'll have seen or heard of me so that there will be the opportunity to ask the questions, get to know what needs to happen. Again, it's all kind of moving parts right now, trying to get things finalized, but we're going to be pushing for this to be as great for everybody here in the community as it is for me so far.
Well, Bailey, thanks so much for coming in and giving us the update after the big announcement on Wednesday, and one of a number of big announcements that I'm sure will be happening periodically between now and kickoff. And I guess I can't even say kickoff, can I? Because is that
no kicking?
Okay. What would we say then to start the game?
I guess we'll be throw off.
Okay. A lot of things to get used to with this new football team, but a lot of excitement as well. The Waterloo Woo coming to Waterloo Auditorium on the Cattle Congress grounds in the summer of 2024. Bailey McCray managing the team. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the station where Iowa comes to talk. News Talk 1540 KXEL.
The 4th of July is an important holiday for all Americans. Hi, this is Joe Cordell of the domestic litigation firm Cordell & Cordell. For some husbands, however, in troubled marriages, holidays are marked more by hardship than harmony. If you're such a guy and considering divorce, know all your options, including alternatives to divorce. We advise, we advocate, and when necessary, we litigate.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Des Moines area attorneys. A partner men can count on. 515-518, all zeros. CordellCordell.com.
The Cal Thomas Commentary is brought to you by Values Through Media. Now here's syndicated columnist Cal Thomas.
Tomorrow is the end of Pride Month, thankfully, but I can guarantee it won't be the end of the push to normalize what was once considered abnormal. How is the public reacting to chants in the streets of New York, "We're coming for your children," or naked men parading in Seattle? According to one poll by the McLaughlin Summit Group, a majority of Americans believe exposing especially children to the LGBT agenda, and it is an agenda, does more harm than good, and that activists pushing this agenda have an ulterior motive. That would be converting children to their point of view, if not their behavior. A majority also believe, according to the poll, that corporations should stay out of the culture wars and politics, just sell their products and services. There's something called overreach, where activists go much further than the country is prepared to accept. I think that's where we are on the entire LGBTQ agenda. People are tired of being called bigots because their faith and values differ from the secular progressives. They have rights too, and the fact those rights are being attacked has created a much-needed backlash. I'm Cal Thomas.
For a free copy of today's commentary, visit calthomas.com or write us at Values Through Media, P.O. Box 373340, Key Largo, Florida 33037. That's P.O. Box 373340, Key Largo, Florida 33037. Please specify the date and subject. Your tax-deductible gifts to Values Through Media help support us. Listen again next time for the Cal Thomas Commentary.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
On the next Iowa Business Report, a new survey finds strong confidence in Iowa's economy and an increase in optimism. We'll have the numbers. And the money your business spends on promotional items is well worth it. That's this week on the Iowa Business Report. Listen Saturday morning at 7 and Sunday morning at 10 on News Talk 1540 KXEL.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Investors this morning eyeing reports showing a stronger than expected U.S. economy, GDP stronger than expected, and fewer people than expected filed for those jobless benefits in the latest week. How'd you like to see $100 billion walk out the door? Other metros are seeing growing number of people and businesses are migrating south. And now Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee, they are actually contributing more to the national GDP than the Northeast is. If you think you're going to get a deal on a home, think again. Redfin says the average home selling for only than last year's all-time high. Could tilt a little more to a buyer's market soon, though. Realtor.com says you might have some luck getting a deal if you make a lowball offer on a home that's been sitting on the market for a while. And what Reuters says aspartame could be about declared a carcinogen by the World Health Organization. It's used in diet sodas and also a lot of those low-cal packaged foods. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Sounds like the Bloomberg folks need to check that line. Maybe they didn't pay the bill and they're getting pulled. Who knows? Well, here's what we do know. Coming up in 10 minutes, Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig to talk about water quality and Prop 12 and much more. That's 10 minutes away.
I'm Michael Libby, and this is where Iowa comes to talk. News Talk 1540 KXEL, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids.
Where the time is 10 o'clock.
This is a Fox News alert. A Supreme Court ruling that's a big deal on college campuses. I'm Dave Anthony. It strikes down affirmative action as a factor when considering student applications.
Both Harvard and the University of North Carolina are in violation of the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause by using race in admissions decisions. A 6-3 ruling authored by Chief Justice John Roberts strikes down higher education affirmative action policies, writing the court has permitted race-based admission only within narrow confines that never use race as a stereotype or a negative, and at some point must end.
Fox's Jared Halpern. In the dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the court has cemented a superficial rule of colorblindness, undoing decades of momentous progress. Hunter Biden's facing questions this morning under oath in court in Delaware in a deposition in the lawsuit filed by computer repair shop owner John Paul MacIsaac, who accuses the president's son of defaming him by denying the laptop he dropped off at the shop then never picked up.
That laptop was eventually turned in to the FBI. MacIsaac's legal team claims Biden told his lawyers to seek a criminal investigation against him as payback, and the attacks have led to damages such as loss of business.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz. President Biden is at 64% among Democrats in a new Fox News 2024 poll. Former President Trump's way ahead in the Republican race despite his recent indictments at 56%. Ron DeSantis, 34 points back, the rest in single digits. Mike Pence at just 4%. The former vice president is visiting Ukraine today. As the European Union summit focuses on Russia's war, NATO's leader Jens Stoltenberg says,
"At the summit, I expect a new announcements of military support."
The anger is simmering across France. That's one of the protests over the deadly police shooting of a 17-year-old. Protesters have injured 170 officers, vandalized or set fire dozens of buildings and cars. America's listening to Fox News.
How far will the left go to win 2024? Will they send out more stimulus checks or give away trillions more to left-wing groups? The simple truth is they don't care if your retirement is eroded down to a fraction of its value. They just want to win. Hi, Stephen K. Bannon. I want to encourage you to diversify your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into a physical gold IRA. And the only company I recommend for gold IRAs is conservative-owned Birch Gold Group. To learn more, text the word PROTECT to 989898 to get their free info kit on gold IRAs. Do this now before Democrats have a chance to legislate away your life savings. Get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting PROTECT to the number 989898. There's nothing to buy and no obligation at all. So use your agency. Take action now. Text the word PROTECT to the number 989898.
Paid for by Birch Gold Group.
Canadian wildfire smoke is covering a lot of America like a hazy blanket, leading to unhealthy and very unhealthy air quality readings from Wisconsin to Alabama, New York to Georgia.
The worst spots, though, to be in today, where you're going to be breathing that air, is the Midwest and the Great Lakes region.
That's Fox Weather's Katie Byrne. In addition to that,
heat waves continue across the southeast U.S. and as far west as Texas. Nashville forecasters are expecting temperatures around 105 today with a heat index of 114. The extreme heat reaches down to Georgia and over to the Carolinas. Even South Florida will experience some record heat and humidity today.
That's where Fox's Evan Brown is in Broward County. A state trooper is being mourned in Indiana.
Trooper Aaron Smith of the Indiana State Patrol was deploying stop sticks along a portion of Interstate 70 in Indianapolis, hoping to end a stolen car chase when he was struck by the fleeing car and thrown through the air.
He didn't survive tonight.
State Police Superintendent Doug Carter shaken by the loss.
He's got a young wife that is just absolutely adorable, and I would trade places if I could take away her pain.
Superintendent Carter says Smith was a shining star for the department. Stolen car crashed. All of its occupants are hospitalized but are expected to survive. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
This news is just breaking. 3 Florida men have been arrested, charged in New York with insider trading over investments in the company that was used to take a media company owned by former President Trump public. The charges do not involve the former president directly. On Wall Street, the Dow is up 157 points. But the Nasdaq's down 20 after economic updates. First quarter GDP economic growth was revised higher from earlier estimates, up to 2%. And there was a 10% drop last week in first-time unemployment claims. I'm Dave Anthony, and this is Fox News.
This is a news update from your trusted local news source, KCRG TV9.
From the KCRG TV9 newsroom, I'm Beth Malicki. Air quality in eastern Iowa is still considered unhealthy. The Iowa DNR issued an air quality advisory for all counties east of Interstate 35 through today. Smoke's being caused by wildfires in Canada. Hand in Hand Daycare in Cedar Rapids takes care of 92 kids. Wednesday, it kept the children indoors because of the air quality concerns. Usually, each class spends about 2 hours a day outside, so they added an indoor dance party and even an indoor water activity to keep the young ones engaged and occupied. Concerned homeowners are reaching out to local HVAC companies to ask how to keep the air in their homes safe. Local HVAC experts recommend keeping doors closed and windows shut and to try to limit going in and out of the house. They also advise replacing filters every 2 to 6 months. In February, a jury found Marlon Jackson guilty of reckless use of a firearm and use of a dangerous weapon in the commission of a crime. He's now going to be serving 7 years for killing a man in Cedar Rapids. He was not found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, a greater charge. Court documents show a judge sentenced the man to 7 years in prison. That happened last week. The shooting happened near Cedar Terrace Apartments last year on the southwest side. Jackson says he thought someone was breaking into his vehicle and went to investigate. He says he saw Dustin Frondel walking toward him. They had some sort of confrontation before Jackson fired warning shots before shooting and killing Dustin Frondel. AARP Iowa announced 8 organizations throughout the state will receive 2023 Community Challenge grants. These grants are designed to help improve public places, transportation, housing, and more. They also have an emphasis on the needs of adults aged 50 and older. Here in Eastern Iowa, the Ely Public Library used the funding to buy 4 virtual reality devices. The Johnson County Livable Community Housing Action Team is also getting funding to educate the public on different housing units. For breaking news alerts and headlines anytime, download the KCRG TV9 News app.
Job seekers, download the Corridor Careers app today and find fresh, local jobs in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and surrounding areas. Get a real connection to top employers in the community. Download the app at corridorcareers.com.
When you need more storage space, turn to Kirkman's Portable Buildings, exit 35 off I-380, an exclusive dealer for premier portable buildings in Sunrise Post and Frame. KERKMANS.com, 4225 Wildlife Road in Center Point.
The KCRG TV9 First Alert forecast for today, a chance for a few storms, especially to our south. Expect a high of 89. A slight chance for storms tonight, the low of 66. Winds out of the northeast between 5 to 15 miles per hour today. Becoming northerly tonight between 5 to 10. Expecting better air quality tomorrow, but still a chance for meteorologist Corey Thompson on News Talk 1540 KXEL.
Quite an active radar south of Interstate 80 in central and eastern Iowa. So areas stretching from south of Des Moines westward to Greenfield. So that includes Winterset, Indianola. Pretty good rain there. Also Oskaloosa south of Sigourney, Fairfield, all the way down to Centerville, Bloomfield, and Keosauqua. Just over the border in northeastern Missouri, there's a tornado warning. That is not in the state of Iowa, but we do have severe thunderstorm warnings continuing for Monroe, Wapello, Davis, and Appanoose counties in Iowa, as well as parts of Polk County, Madison, Dallas, and Warren counties in the Des Moines metro area. So if you're traveling south of I-80, you're running into some bumpy weather this morning. As for most of us, we have that air quality alert through the day today up until 11:59 p.m. tonight. That does include the Cedar Valley and the corridor, everything in essence east of I-35. Mixed bag out there right now, fog and mist in Decorah with 73 degrees. This 10 o'clock hour in Winnebago County, fog and mist 70 in Boone. The airport in Des Moines, a thunderstorm at last report and 72 degrees there. Independence, mostly cloudy with haze and 77. Hazy, 79 in Vinton. Fair skies with a bit of haze in Iowa City and 79 there in Johnson County. Fog and mist in Charles City with 77. Fog and mist in both Clarion and Webster City, 73 in each location. Some mist and fog in Ames with 72. Just a few clouds, though, in Mason City where it's 76. Fair skies but hazy in both Marshalltown and Oldwine, 75 in each of those cities. Newton, you have fog and mist and 73 degrees on this Thursday morning. Eastern Iowa Airport, wind from the north at 9. Visibility only 1.25 miles at the airport. smoky conditions, and 77 in the City of Five Seasons, Waterloo Regional Airport. North wind at 6, visibility a little better now, 2 miles at the airport on the north end of the Cedar Valley of the metro area, Waterloo, Cedar Falls. Some haze, otherwise fair skies, and we're up to 79 now as an air temperature in Waterloo, Cedar Falls from News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk, and where KXEL News Time is 10.5 minutes after 10 o'clock.
Time for another hour of great programming from the Blackhawk Roof Company studio on News Talk 1540 KXEL. Don't compromise on quality. Visit blackhawkroof.com.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next.
Liberty University's K-12 online academy is the best of a homeschool, private school, and Bible-based education all rolled into one. With LUOA, you can take charge of your child's learning environment and create a structured yet flexible schedule that works for your family. Our qualified teachers are easily accessible for guidance and support along the way. And with new classes starting every Monday, it's never too late to make a switch to LUOA. To learn more, text LUOA to 88741. That's LUOA to 88741.
Granby, Connecticut seems to be an unusual place for a culture war, but parents there are just fed up. The other day, children at Wells Road Intermediate School were shown a video about gender identity. It was part of the school's Pride Month celebration. Parents say they were not told in advance and were not given the opportunity to opt their kids out of the video presentation. The parent of an 8-year-old said the material was just not appropriate for the youngsters, but the school district defended the film. They say the video was designed for children as young as 2 years old. They say they just want to remind kids it's okay to be who you are and still be treated with respect and dignity. No, ladies and gentlemen, that film was meant to indoctrinate. And good for the moms and dads of Granby, Connecticut for rising up and speaking out. Just remember, your parental rights do not stop at the schoolhouse door. I'm Todd Starnes.
This is Todd Starnes. Join me tonight at 8 on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.
This is where Iowa comes to talk. News Talk 1540 KXEL. And this is KXEL Live and Local. From the KXEL News Center, here is Jeff Stein.
Welcome back, KXEL Live and Local, on the air, hour number 3. For this Thursday, 10 o'clock hour. And I'm joined now on the news line by the Iowa Secretary of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, Mike Naig. He's kind enough to join us on a monthly basis. Mr. Secretary, thank you for the time, sir.
Hey, great to always catch up, Jeff.
For the interests of full disclosure, we are recording this late yesterday morning on Wednesday, so you can hear it now on Thursday. And there was a question that had been posed by a listener in the past, and I don't think I've ever asked you about it, and so I need to take care of that. We hear a lot of talk about vaccinations with regard to animals. Mm-hmm. And there have been some concerns raised about the impact on the food supply. In other words, if you vaccinate an animal and then that animal becomes food for humans at some point, there may be some issues. So that was raised by a listener. I know nothing about the topic, but I trust you do. So tell us about this.
Well, happy to. And you know, it's a good question, right? And this comes up from time to time. And I think it's important to be really upfront about it. You know, first of all, the use of pharmaceuticals, vaccines, antibiotics, you name it, in livestock production, in food production is it's a common thing. It's vaccines have been used for decades, so it's an important part of managing herd health. And of course, when we look at the productivity side of things, we say a healthy animal produces a safe product. So whether it's dairy, eggs, meat, you want healthy animals in that production system. And so the animal pharmaceuticals are an important part of that. So as it relates to this specific question around RNA, here we've got, it is a new class, if you will, a new platform to bring vaccines to the marketplace. And I'm really only aware of just maybe 1 or 2 products in use in the swine side right now. But I know that there's others looking at bringing products again, through that RNA platform to the market. And of course, any product that comes to the marketplace has to go through extensive regulatory process and trials and testing. And in the food animal space, they specifically look at what's the withdrawal period. So any product that is used in livestock for food production has a withdrawal period on it, as in you can't market that animal, or you can't sell the milk off of that dairy cow that's been treated. Every product has got a withdrawal period that needs to be complied with, and that's part of the trial and the testing and the research that needs to get done before a product makes it to the marketplace. So that's in place today for any number of products, but certainly would have to be true and would be true of any new platform, any RNA vaccines that would come to the marketplace as well.
And I imagine the question comes from, and I don't intend to ask you a question that gets too far down this road, but we have had a lot of conversation about the COVID vaccinations and what we knew or didn't know, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so there's at least a healthy skepticism among folks out there about what they hear from government. And so this is why we all kind of scratch our heads and kind of look sideways sometimes.
And I say healthy skepticism is fine, right? I mean, those two terms together are just fine with me. Ask questions. Companies should have to defend these products, explain these products. This is where you need researchers at maybe folks don't trust. And by the way, a healthy distrust of government is fine with me too. I happen to be in government and still distrust government. So I do think you've got to look at some trusted third parties. And when I think of folks that are trusted third parties in this space, I'm going to think of folks at the College of Vet Medicine at Iowa State University. I'm going to think of those folks, veterinarians, in that profession, people that are doing the research, people that look from the outside. I think those are the voices that we should really be paying attention to. But of course, by law, the federal agencies also are responsible for conducting a science-based, risk-based approach to this. And I get the concern or the questions about how COVID vaccines were brought, using emergency procedures. That's just not the case in the livestock side of things, right? Let that process play out. It is lengthy. It's intense. It should be. Within reason. But we do also, I want to balance this with, it's important that we may remain productive. And again, the ultimate goal here is healthy animals, make safe food, and that's important to all of us. And also watching the price of the food products that you and I are consuming as well. So safety, affordability, abundance, those have got to be on our minds.
Iowa Secretary of Agriculture and Land Stewardship Mike Naig joins us on News Talk 1540 KXEL. Well, speaking of distrusting government, here we go again with RFS. And you hear one thing, then you hear another thing. It's almost like whoever got there last is the one that gets their way. And we talked with the folks from the Iowa Biodiesel Board on the program last week, but what a disappointment.
Oh, it is. That's a really good way to put that, Jeff. It does feel like it's like the last person out of the room. That's where it swings. Okay, so I've got lots of thoughts on this, as you can imagine.
Sure.
But let me take it this way. I can't understand, honestly, the logic of a Biden administration that in one breath will talk about the need to lower the carbon intensity of transportation fuel, the transportation system, and so we're going to go all in on EVs, apparently. But at the same time, when they also are looking at the fact that biofuels are already delivering fuels and energy that has a lower carbon intensity. So they say they want it, but then they don't fully support the products that are actually delivering it. And so to me, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical why they've taken this approach. The RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, was established by Congress in the early 2000s. It had the intent is to increase the amount of biofuels, domestic renewable biofuels, that can be used in the transportation system. That was the intent of Congress. EPA is then to set these blend targets. And what they did by laying out blend targets over the next 3 years is they essentially said in 2025 we should blend about what we're producing today. Well, that's not sending an expansion signal. And I have to tell you, Jeff, I now have 4 vehicles on the road. I've got 2 teenage drivers. I am watching the price of fuel intensely, and I want more of the biofuels that drive down the cost. Right? That's who ultimately wins in this is consumers. So I'll be generous. It was a swing and a miss by EPA.
And again, to be fair, it is an increase each year, but a fraction of what the industry could produce and a fraction of what I think some of you folks were given or led to believe would be the case. I have to imagine it wasn't just disappointment. It almost felt like a bit of betrayal.
Well, and then of course they had put some numbers out earlier, and then they that they kind of sent that, and then it was actually a reduction from those. I mean, like it's a shell game, first of all. But I the point is that we've got something that's good, right? We've got something that is domestic, it's renewable, it's bio-based, it helps our economy, it provides markets for farmers, it's good for the environment. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, right? It's good for the environment and it's good for the consumer's pocketbook. Again, it's just nonsensical. Why wouldn't we want to be doing more of that? Especially, Jeff, you and I have talked about this. We continue to have an uncertain world. Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. Energy issues in Europe. China on the move. Why don't we want to actually, more than just talk about it, actually do things that make us more and more energy independent? I would much rather be putting ethanol and biodiesel and renewable diesel into a gas tank in Iowa than putting another battery in an EV, knowing where those two things come from.
I'm guessing with young drivers at home now, the price of gas is not the only thing you're watching.
Well, correct. We're having these are good life lesson opportunities about what things cost and insurance and oil changes and all kinds of things. And by the way, I have to feed those teenagers too. It's Jeff. It's kind of tough right now.
I leave it to better men such as you. I've not had the privilege. Well, now this is an interesting thing. Prop 12. Okay, this is the California provision that the U.S. Supreme Court said was fine, and it would dramatically affect the food product that would be brought into the state. Well, now they've delayed implementation of it. Do you sense that they are starting to figure out this might not have been the brightest idea that ever came out of the Golden State?
Oh, one could hope. One could hope, right? I do think it's a recognition that the practical reality is that this is not just a switch that you flip and it automatically happens, and that there's automatically going to be compliant pork production that can immediately move into the state on July 1. And so I think it's a recognition, a concession to that, if you will. And I will give credit to my counterpart in California. I think they are trying to do something to ease the transition. The point, though, at the core of this is 6 months really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because what you've got is you've still, it's a shockwave in terms of interstate commerce in this country. And it's more than just pork production. It's more than just the cage size for egg production. Again, what the Supreme Court held was that as long as you impose the same restrictions on your producers or your manufacturers in your state, you can also impose those restrictions on folks that want to sell into your state. So it's food today. It's actually happening in other states as well. But you could have any number of California could have all kinds of opinions on things and impose their preferences on everybody else just because of the size of the market. And so it's food today. It won't stay that way.
Well, and in an odd example, I needed a new desk chair. So I go to the office store, I get a desk chair. I'm putting it together at home last night, and you turn it over, and the labels on the bottom of the seat have nothing to do with the instruction, but it talked about how it matches up with California regulations regarding A, B, C, or D. And I thought, well, here we go again, where the tail wags the national dog.
That's correct. And again, play that out over any number of industries or products. I know we talked about this before, which is you can go back. These are things that are foundational in our country. I think our founding fathers talked about this, debated this, had compromises related to this, and that being that you can't have, you powerful states. Back then it would have been Virginia and New York imposing their will upon others. Basically de facto, they're serving as the federal government. And so I think there's very core interstate commerce questions that are now, being posed. And the Supreme Court, the decision is what it is. And now Congress really is the entity that has to, through the legislative process, decide whether this is something that that belongs in the national discussion. And so, could that make it into a farm bill? I certainly think it could, but again, let's be real here. It's bigger than just agriculture. So I think it's got huge implications that are still going to play out. But again, the practical reality on the ground is producers now have to decide, are they going to comply and get into compliance with the Prop 12 requirements as they exist today? Are they going to sit that out and forego the market? And if you are going to comply, how do you secure the capital that you need in order to do that when you can only tell your lender, hey, I'm only in compliance as long as they don't change the rules, which could happen really at any time.
Mike Naig is Iowa Secretary of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, joins us for his monthly visit here on News Talk 1540 KXEL. You and Deputy Secretary Grant Menke took a trip up to the Twin Cities recently, and it was hardly a back-to-school shopping trip. This was interesting to me because it's one thing, and I talk about this with the Attorney General, how closely do you work with your peers in other states? Well, you've got a network of folks here in the Midwest with very common interests. Agriculture is different in this part of the country than it may be in California or Florida, and there are some issues where linking arms would probably be helpful, right?
There it is, and I always enjoy the opportunity to get together with my colleagues. It was in Minneapolis, and a good example I always think of. Met a new colleague from the state of Michigan, and you think of Michigan agriculture versus Iowa. A lot of diversity, different crops, different climate, and different politics in Michigan, and so in some ways we're very different, but in so many other ways we're experiencing the same sort of challenges, both in operating our departments and trying to recruit and retain folks, but also in the types of ag issues, the Farm Bill, access to markets, workforce, labor shortages, and freedom to operate for producers. Even across the diversity of even the Midwest, I think it speaks volumes when we can work together and link arms in ways that we're unified in things, and especially as we head into a Farm Bill. Really ramp up the discussions here. Agriculture needs to get aligned where they can and really push hard. And state departments of agriculture are a huge component of that. And so it's important for us to have a voice and work together.
This may be beyond the purview of what you study, but I thought I heard a report out of D.C. that the consternation within the Republican House caucus, they were blocking bills because they were mad about the debt ceiling, et cetera, that could cause enough friction that the Farm Bill itself could be in jeopardy because some of these urban-rural coalitions, we need the Farm Bill part. The bigger cities want the SNAP aspects. That's why that's all together. That this could lead to a fracture that could mean no Farm Bill this year or dramatically adversely affected situations. Know anything about that, or is that just a rampant rumor that I happen to hear?
No, your finger's right on the pulse as usual. There's really two scenarios here that could play out, and I was actually the fact that, and again, I'm not saying I liked everything that was in it, but the debt ceiling process and the fact that there could be compromise, there could be a bipartisanship that was required to get that bill done, actually gave some hope that you can at least move significant legislation through. And let's be honest, a Farm Bill is a significant piece of legislation. Now, Farm Bills have always been bipartisan. They're going to have to be bipartisan. They're always going to have to be bipartisan because you do have to bring together. It's not just the farm legislators that vote on this. You correctly point out a significant percent, like 80+% of the Farm Bill actually is the food assistance title, right? And so that brings a lot of folks, a lot of voices together and gives more folks a reason to vote for the bill. But you've got to let that process play out. So I remain optimistic that we can get a Farm Bill done, that it will be bipartisan, and that it's something that will be good for us. I really, Farm Bills, I think, there's been a track record of that being a good thing. Joni Ernst, Chuck Grassley, Randy Feenstra, Zach Nunn, all on ag committees. Iowa will have a seat more than just a seat at the table, where we can drive some of these negotiations and some of the things happening in the Farm Bill. But I have to acknowledge, though, the reality of, yes, there's been some, since the debt ceiling, work was done, now you've got some obstruction that's happening. And yes, that very well could make the Farm Bill not possible this year. But I remain optimistic. It's an important piece of legislation. It's foundational to the U.S. way of life. We should have one, and there's going to be a lot of folks pushing for it.
Let's end on a positive note. As this month of June comes to a close, you've made some announcements with regard to water quality projects. That's something that's in the purview of the agency and something I know you're very interested in.
It is, and thank you. We have been able to announce some new projects and to announce some expansions of some existing projects. And so when I look at these, even the new project in Hardin County, we've got another one up in the Turkey River watershed up, close to you, a little north from you all there in Waterloo, and then down in southern Iowa as well. These are projects that have shown that they can be successful. And so what we've been able to do is say, all right, take those learnings that you've got on cover crops, wetlands, bioreactors, you name it, and expand that into some adjacent watersheds. And so this is strength on strength. This is building from what these teams locally have done. Thrilled to be able to launch these, and we're excited about what comes next.
Mr. Secretary, sorry for taking so much time, but always much to discuss. Hope you and your family have a safe Independence Day holiday, and we'll talk to you again next month, if not before.
Oh, and you do the same, and let's pray for some rain.
And we may indeed get a little more, and we'll check with the folks at the Weather Lab in just a few moments. Mike Naig, Secretary of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. We spoke on the phone yesterday midday, so you could hear the conversation now in this 10 o'clock hour of KXEL Live and Local. Secretary Naig, among all the state officials who join us on a regular basis, typically monthly, here exclusively on KXEL. All right, Bloomberg Money Minute at the bottom of the hour, then a live update from the First Alert Weather Lab, and we'll check the prospect of rain as the Secretary requested. As we roll on for this Thursday on News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.
First time, 6 fast-growing states in the South, Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee, are contributing more to the national GDP than the Northeast. A flood of transplants helped steer about $100 billion in new income to the South in 2020 and 2021 alone. Bed Bath & Beyond is back. Overstock says it plans to relaunch Bed Bath & Beyond online in Canada next week, followed by the U.S. in the next few weeks. Bed Bath & Beyond sold some of its digital assets to Overstock for $21.5 million earlier this month. Home buyers are facing an affordability squeeze. According to real estate data firm Adam, buyers need to spend 33% of their wages to afford a typical house. It also marks the highest level since 2007. Stocks are seeing muted gains, the S&P rising 0.2%, with the Dow up 170 points. Data earlier today showed a resilient economy, underscoring the likelihood the Fed will keep raising rates. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
KXEL News Time on this Thursday morning, 27 minutes before 11 o'clock. It's an active weather day, certainly south of I-80. TV9 meteorologist Jan Reichert is joining us live now from the Weather Lab in Cedar Rapids. And you know it's a big system when parts of like a dozen counties literally have a severe thunderstorm warning, especially in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those more robust kind of systems, a complex storm. You're talking about, those are the ones that we're going to get gusty winds with, and that's what we have seen here. Several actually reports already this morning from western and central Iowa of some wind damage, either limbs down, things like that. And right now we do still have active severe thunderstorm warnings for parts of the state. That includes Henry, Jefferson, Eliza, Washington counties, again, so far southeastern Iowa, for some gusty winds, about 60 miles per hour. We have seen some reports warnings up to about 70 miles per hour. Even a tornado warning in the far, far southeast for Lee County, Van Buren County as well, and down into northwest or northeastern parts of Missouri as well. So definitely an active morning for us, and we're dealing with, severe thunderstorms, tornado warnings at 10:30 in the morning. We've had those here throughout the morning so far. Now, as we head through the afternoon, I think these storms are going to be around the early afternoon, but starting to kind of move out of the area through the later afternoon hours. So not going to be with us the rest of the day. But if you are listening, again, especially south of I-80 and even upwards towards Highway 30, I think we could see some of these storms in the next several hours through that 1-2 o'clock hour or so. So continue to, pay attention to that and know that there is the possibility of some gusty winds, some lightning, some thunder with that as well. And as we've noted over the last several days, that's not the only thing. We've still got that wildfire smoke lingering around. That also, though, should start to improve here through the day.
I had mentioned that a tornado warning was issued for northern Missouri, and I had missed that it slid on over and has Keokuk in its sights. And this whole thing is moving, as you said, swiftly, but sort of in a counterclockwise east-northeast way, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Moving very, very east northeast, like you said there. Right now, it is radar indicated rotation. We have had that same storm earlier on when it was down into northeastern Missouri only, not so much in our Iowa counties, that it was actually observed at one point. So that storm does have a history, capability of producing a tornado, as it was observed by weather spotters earlier on. Right now, though, again, back to radar indicated rotation as things have seemingly weakened a little bit, but also, again, some heavy rain with that. So not necessarily can you count on that visible observation of it if you're in that area. Definitely time to get to that safe place if you're not already there. Again, that's Hancock County in Illinois, Van Buren County for southeastern Iowa, Lee County in southeastern Iowa as well, and then for northeastern Missouri, Clark and Scotland counties as well.
All right, so we've got this chance of storms you mentioned, primarily south of Highway 30, probably, but then more storms and warm conditions tomorrow and tomorrow night and into Saturday. And boy, that pattern changed, didn't it?
I know. I just want to remind everybody who said they wanted rain that here it is. This is what we get. We get these scattered summer storms where there's no consistency to them, really. It's just kind of little pop up here and there because of all the heat, all the moisture and stuff that we have around, and that has certainly been able to build up for us. Now that we've been able to saturate the atmosphere enough, we're actually able to get all of this rain to get to the ground. And so that's why, again, very scattered in nature, plenty of dry time mixed in as well in the coming days, but today, tomorrow, still into the weekend as well. Scattered chances for some storms are going to be with us. Again, not any one consistent storm moving through or continual time frame for that, but we could see some on and off activity.
Jan, thank you for the insight. We'll let you get back to watching the radar and see you on the TV box at 11.
Sounds good.
TV9 meteorologist Jan Reichert, kind enough to join us from the Weather Lab in Cedar Rapids. Live conversation with Jan on this Thursday morning. So we've told you where the most significant severe weather is. TV9 First Alert Pinpoint Doppler radar does show some pretty significant rain southeast of Des Moines down to Indianola, stretching to Pella. Oskaloosa's already had some. They may get more. Ottumwa, Sigourney, Fairfield, Washington. You've got some pretty active radar as well. And then the area where the possibility of tornadoes exists, Keosauqua, Fort Madison, and Keokuk. Again, that is all southeastern quarter of the state of Iowa. There is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for areas south of Interstate 80 for a while longer. Of note to the corridor in the Cedar Valley, air quality alert until the end of the day today, until we get into Friday morning tomorrow. So that's the eastern half of the state with the air quality alert once again. Mixed bag of conditions around our state. Decorah, fog and mist, 75 degrees there. In Boone, fog and mist and 70. They've had some rain, and within the past hour, a thunderstorm as well at the airport in Des Moines, 72 in Iowa's capital city. Here's the reading from Independence. Sky obscured with haze. Pretty descriptive. 77 degrees there. Fair with haze and 79 in Iowa City. 81 is the number in Vinton. Hazy conditions there in Benton County. Fog and mist, 77 in Charles City. Clarion, fog and mist, and 73. Same in Webster City. Fog and mist and 72 in Newton and Ames. Just a few clouds, though, in Mason City, where it's 76. 75 in Marshalltown with fair skies and hazy conditions, some haze and a fair sky in Oelwein, and 77. Eastern Iowa Airport, north wind at 9, visibility at last report due to smoke down to 1.25 miles. It's 77 in Cedar Rapids. Waterloo Regional Airport, north wind at 6, visibility at the airport on the north end of town 2 miles. It is 80 degrees now in Waterloo, Cedar Falls. From News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk. Tomorrow on this program, KXEL Live and Local, Cedar Falls Police Chief Mark Howard will be here. We'll be talking about the rules for fireworks in Cedar Falls, and we'll mention some other areas as well. We'll speak with an expert who can help us diffuse fireworks of a different sort. What happens if you get together with the family for Independence Day and you disagree politically? We'll try to mediate that. That's in our 9 o'clock hour. Events in the month of July is the topic for a top 7 list provided by the Iowa Gallivant J.J. Goodvin. He'll talk with KXEL's Tim Harwood about that tomorrow. And America's Money Answers man, Jordan Goodman, will be along live as well. All that and more tomorrow on this radio program. KXEL News Time now on a Thursday morning is 20 minutes before 11.
This is Profit Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. They're driven to deliver opportunities and results for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. Visit iasoybeans.com to learn more. I'm Dustin Huffman. We know every year is different. Farmers have to prepare for any eventuality and be able to pivot their plan on very short notice. Different weather patterns also bring other problems with them. Different diseases, weed pressures, and even pest problems come along with floods or droughts. And with the dry conditions we're seeing across the Corn Belt, we're starting to see signs of a certain pest becoming a problem. We talk about it more right after this.
Looking to get the most out of every soybean acre? The Iowa Soybean Association, powered by your Soy Checkoff investment, is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. That means boosting the profitability, productivity, and sustainability of your farm will always be our goal. Activate or confirm your membership before August 31st and be entered to win one of many unique prizes, including a drone. Visit iasoybeans.com today with promo code DRONE2.
Nick Sider is an extension field crops entomologist over at the University of Illinois, and he says that they've been getting reports of increased spider mite populations showing up all over the Corn Belt.
So I won't be surprised at all if we start to hear some reports of scattered damage over this next week or so. And if the drought continues to escalate, then we would be more likely to see issues with them.
Sider talks about what signs farmers should be looking for to determine if they have a spider mite infestation.
Those leaves, when they're first affected, they start to turn a little bit yellow. It's actually stippling if you look closely enough at the leaf, but from a distance, it's going to look yellow. And as that damage progresses, it'll turn more brown and necrotic. And what we typically see are isolated areas of that damage that, if drought conditions persist, will start to expand. Now, if you go in closer and look at the individual leaf, if your eyes are good, you might see the mites themselves. Probably you'll need a hand lens to really see the mites. You'll also see the webbing they leave behind, coating especially these heavily damaged leaflets.
Now, of course, there are ways to get the situation under control if you have a spider mite infestation in your corn or soybean fields.
Mites are not an insect, they're an arachnid. One of the consequences of that is a lot of insecticides don't do a very good job of controlling spider mites. We've got a relatively limited number of pesticides that we can use. A few insecticides, in particular bifenthrin and dimethoate, will have an effect on them. In both cases, you're not going to have any effect on the eggs at all, and the materials don't last very long. So it might take multiple applications with a material like that to get good control. We also have dedicated miticides like Agrimec, abamectin, for instance. There's a number of others as well. Those tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they will likely do a better job of control.
Sider says that rains are still the best weapon we have against the growth of the spider mite populations. Again, this is just another one of those problems that comes along with the drought. And rain being the biggest weapon, we're hopeful that some of the rain shower activity that's supposed to be coming over the next several days across Iowa and much of the Corn Belt, where some of the drier regions have been, will actually materialize. While we know that could bring lower crop prices, getting rid of some of those dry weather pests is also a win-win situation. For this story and more, log on to iowaagnet.com. For Profit Matters on this Thursday morning, I'm Dustin Huffman.
Ask your smart speaker to play us.
News Talk 1540 KXEL, where Iowa comes to talk.
Bill O'Reilly here. You are listening to the O'Reilly Update. Coming up next, the news with Mike Slater.
Thank you, Bill. It is Thursday, June 29th, 2023. Here's what's happening today in America. The pictures are not fake. The texts aren't either. Anheuser-Busch CEO on damage control, and the ESPYs get woker. It's all coming up. Then Bill will be here with your message of the day. But first, Biden was seen with strap marks on his face outside the White House. I first saw the pictures and thought they were fake. Like someone photoshopped for some conspiracy theory or something. Turns out they're real. And the White House says those marks on his face were from the CPAP machine to treat sleep apnea. Now, Biden's most recent health report never mentioned sleep apnea as a condition that the president has. Also, in a 24-hour time period, Biden mistakenly said Iraq when he was referring to Ukraine. Once at a fundraiser in Maryland on Tuesday night, and then another time Wednesday morning outside the White House. Now moving to Hunter Biden, a new text released by the House Oversight Committee from 2017 reveals that Hunter Biden sent a text to a business associate, Gongwen Dong, asking for $10 million. The text said $10 million per annum budget to use to further the interest of the JV. If you think this is about money, it's not. The Bidens are the best I know at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership. Let's not quibble over peanuts. IRS whistleblowers are speaking